Well done to all of you guys. All right, Kostas, now the floor is yours. You have about 15 minutes.
I mean,
Whatever you
now,
want.
I mean, what can I do now? I mean, it's like to try to sing after Frank Sinatra. It's very hard for me to do this. You know, the students, they did an excellent job. Not students, the colleagues. You know, all of them, you know, all of us, we are colleagues. And you need to, I mean, I feel proud of you without being with you. I feel very proud and, you know, following you also in Hanya and in these online sessions under the supervision of Elena. I mean, and also Rafael, because they are a lot of teachers behind, you know, Impact. So what can I say? Now I'm feeling, you know, it's the first time that I have to do a presentation and I'm feeling embarrassed. You know, this is the first time that happened to me, you know, and this is very hard to happen. But, you know, I will do my best just to discuss with you, you know, a few things about presentation principles. I mean, and the first principle is like you design to make a presentation following a plan, and at the end you present something else, either because of the time restrictions, either, you know, because of the previous speaker. So I will try just to discuss with you a few principles about presentation skills. And I will share my screen. And let's see if within the remaining time, which is like
50 minutes.
so, yeah, I mean, it's okay. Yeah.
40 minutes. Yeah.
Let me try if I have the right thing. And also, okay, stop share because I have also a video. So I will do this again. Where's the share sound? And okay, share here, here. Hmm, come on. All right, I think that you can see my screen, no? So, I mean, you know, this is not the template that I'm supposed to use, but this is a template from another project that we have run with the other universities in previous years. And what I would like to say to you, and you have realized very well that doing a presentation is a great opportunity in order to show your capacity. And this is exactly what you have managed through these sessions, through Impact and through the Students' Conference. You show to us your capacity and your talents. And what I would like to say to you, you know, in the future, grab the opportunity. There are a lot of students, a lot of colleagues that they hesitate to make a presentations because mainly because of the language. So I hope that the language barriers are not, you know, prohibitors in order to make a presentation. I strongly suggest whenever you have the chance, present your work, present yourself, present your institution in order to build your network. And during the presentation, it's not, you know, so important. Of course, it's important the content, but you know, it's more important how you will say the things. So content and the way that you are going to present the things makes, you know, the optimum result. Of course, the main motivation whenever you make a presentation is like to keep your audience alive, not, you know, kill them, not, you know, just you know, make them sleep. And definitely your presentations during the seminar and during the conference kept us, all of us, alive to ask questions, to ask ourselves, you know, is it possible, you know, undergraduate students, you know, to know so many things and, you know, collaborate so well. So this is like a video, I think that I will skip it, but it's a very nice video to show how how to say things, you know, what, you know, by saying the same story, you know, how you can change, you know, the results. But I will skip it. I don't think so. But let's see, watch it, you know. I mean, the time that we have.
What did you do to my sign?
I wrote the same, but in different words.
Thanks, love.
So you can see it like by saying, you know, the same story with the different words, you can see the impact. And this was just, you know, a small video that shows, you know, this, you know, in a real life. So, I mean, regarding, you know, the things that you need to remember regarding presentation and how you would like to convey your message and your capacity in your work, I mean, one of the things that you need to know is the audience. The audience has the power in order to convert your story to a real achievement. So you need to know how do they perceive the things, you know, on the story that you are going to say. The level of the knowledge of the audience is very important in order to shape your story. And not only this, but also you need to develop a persuasive message. Yeah, it's not a presentation. It's not just to say a story. It's not just to say your results, but you need to say your results in an appropriate way, that the different parts of the audience can understand. So knowing who is your audience regarding the specialization, regarding the level of the students, of the participants, this affects very much your message. And your message is not just like you don't just convey an information, but you need to persuade, you know, your audience about your work and by your achievement. So there are two things that the people remember during a presentation: numbers and stories. So storytelling becomes, you know, a whole scientific topic regarding presentation skills and how do you present things and how you can attract funding and how can you attract collaborators. So storytelling and introduce a story within your presentation, particularly at the very beginning, is a very convenient way to attract the attention of the audience. Another thing is like depending on the media. How are you going to make this presentation? Face to face, through online, through Zoom, through an email, through a newsletter. You know, this kind of media affects very much on how to say a message as a story to the audience that this message conveys. And also another thing that we will see is like how to prepare in the case of a conference and a presentation, like how do you need to prepare the slides? How many slides? What kind of colors? How many colors? What kind of fonts? What kind of transitions you are going to use? And of course, very, very important is like the delivery of the presentation. You are an actor. You are like, how can I say, a tour guide during your presentation. You try to address the needs of the audience. You try to use the appropriate message with the appropriate tools, using the right stories in order to convince your information to the audience. So you need to perform as a presenter. And finally, the other thing that we need to remember is like the impact of our presentation. And the impact of our presentation counts qualitative and quantitative. You can see if the audience is satisfied, either this is online or face-to-face presentations, but also you can see through the Q&A session how many questions you have attracted, you know, in order to quantify the impact of your presentation, or how many connections you will make after your presentation. So all these elements should combine, all these elements should be designed by yourself in order to have a great presentation and a great presentation. So if I'm going to analyze each one of them, and you know the topics that we need to remember regarding the audience and knowing your audience and build empathy, so to understand what do they expect, is like to understand the power of the audience. And here is like all these people, they are going to use your work if you convince them, following the designing the appropriate message, using the story, and be well prepared. Sometimes the audience is not coherent. I mean, you have different parts within the audience. You have staff, you have faculty, you have undergraduate, you have postgraduate students. You need to take into account this in order to shape and to design your slides, but also to shape your story. You need to know this information before, so do not hesitate to ask, you know, when you are asked about the presentation, who are going to be the audience, because this is also dictate the way that even you are dressed or what kind of material you are going to prepare, and also at what level. And your story, it has an objective to change the opinion of the audience sometimes. I mean, you need to convince the audience of your work or of your perceptions, and that's why you need to know and show an empathy of their opinion and be ready to experience a resistance during your presentation. But at the end of the day, you need to convince them in order to enhance the impact of your presentation. You need to use, by knowing them, the same terminology that they understand, the same perception that they agree, in order to be more friendly with them and identify the common ground. If I go to the message, I mean, and this is something that, I would like to comment. The first thing is like you have to have your big idea, and the big ideas is your motivation. So whenever you're doing a presentation, I will advise you the following. Find out what is the problem, because whenever you present something, in order to convince the audience, you need to address a problem. You need to address a challenge. Either this is technology progress, or is a society problem, or is a society challenge. You need to have the challenge, and that's why the people, they will listen to you. Because the first thing that you need to do during a presentation, you need to convince the audience why someone should spend his or her time to listen to you. So a problem is the first thing that you are doing. And if you think, and if you are a postgraduate student, this is the same way, how do we write papers? And how do we write, our ideas in a written word? We have a problem, we are coming with our specialization, we solve the problem, or we address partially the problem. And this is like our perception and our idea and our work, in order to convince the editor to publish our work, in order to write the story in an appropriate way, in order the audience to read our work and cite our work. The same with the oral presentation. Exactly the same principle. But you need to have your big idea in a simple word. You need to have a motivation. And your work and your results and your opinions is the content that addresses and back up how do you solve this challenge, and how do you address this idea. Of course, you need to somehow simulate. You need to use your AI, let's say machine learning, individual machine learning approach and capacities, in order to be able to predict any kind of resistance in your ideas. So you need to read before a presentation. You need to read bibliography before you write something, in order to identify different ideas. So your work to convince and lower this resistance, and in this case, you will have an impact as a presenter. You need to use the right words. I check Mario. Mario has an excellent finishing of his presentation, by the way that he spoke, by the way that he placed some emotions in his presentation, like to amplify your message at the end. In all of you, you have this, because you have the conclusion, and the conclusion is your message, in order the people to remember, in case that you would like to initiate an initiative. Of course, you have to have an effective call for action, and at the end of the day, identify your best of the ideas in order to present, depending on the time or during the summary. And before you present, remember, you have to write a story, and the story have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And this is the way that we will show to you how to organize your thoughts, and what kind of language you are going to use. And avoid jargon. Jargon is something that you need to avoid in your presentation. About now the third element, which is the storytelling. This is very important. As I told you, the things that we remember, that's why I will always remember the story with the wolf and the small girl. I don't remember the Red Hood. The people, they remember stories. So you can start your presentation with a personal story, with personal research story that you have, in order to start to introduce the people your ideas. So to invest and read, about storytelling principles. But remember, beginning, middle, and the end of the story, and this creates a solid structure, and also let you to start with the beginning, which is your motivation and what problem you would like to solve. Then at the end of the beginning, you have your solution. In the middle, you present your work, your ideas, and at the end, you conclude with how your ideas have addressed the challenge. And I mentioned about Mario, so keep Mario's ending about the emotion that you need to have in order to excite your audience and follow the feelings of the audience. In some case, manipulate these feelings and create something that always the people they remember. This has to do with your content, with your rhythm, with your style, with your presentation style, as we will see. The media, of course, depends on the media that you are going to use, different body language. Let's say when we will have a face-to-face presentation, different body language and movements. When we have, the digital tools that we are using, try to learn the software that we are using and how do we use it. Regarding the time and how many slides, for example, a lot of students they ask you need to prepare. I mean, in this case, you show less and you speak more, and the duration of your presentation defines the right length that you need to have. Sometimes you need to be adapt, like in this case, you need to adapt. How many time do you have and how you would like to convey your message. Try to be in contact with your audience, even after your presentation, in order to identify your network. Try to perform as I mentioned. Regarding the slides now, I mean, I have seen a lot of slides with a lot of colors with different fonts. I keep what Elena has mentioned in one of these presentations. I mean, if you don't know how to use PowerPoint in order to use the slide master and design your slides, I mean, there are a lot of ready templates. Ready templates, either you're using Gamma or either you are using PowerPoint or Canvas. So try to use the ready templates. If you would like to design your slide templates, try to not use more than 2 or 3 colors, depending on the situation, depending on your audience, depending on the level of your audience, depending on the event, depending on the ideas that you would like to convey, if it's personal experience or scientific results. Try to use the same font. I mean, or maximum 2 font size. For example, I will say italic whenever someone else, you're using someone else, expressions, or bold when you would like to highlight something. So try to do this and create, slides that people they can understand in 3 seconds, which means like speak less, show less, and speak more. I mean, not more than 4 bullets here. It's like a training. I think that I failed on this. Choose the right type of slide. I mentioned about the template. 1 story per slide in order to, the people to have a conclusion, and also try to use the transition in an appropriate way in order to convey better your data. Clarify the data. Here we have to say something that I will analyze later on, how to use numbers. I mean numbers, they are numbers, but depending on what you would like to present, you need to use appropriate these numbers. For example, when you would like to compare, you're using percentages. When you would like to show absolute values, you need numbers. So depending on what you are presenting, use the appropriate numbers. So I move on in order to go on. As I mentioned, like rehearse and be prepared before a presentation is something like an actor. You are an actor on the stage, so you need to perform. I mean, probably you have an excellent ideas, have excellent results, but how many times we have been to follow or attend a lecture from a very distinguished lecturer? And these distinguished scientists, they fail to convey their knowledge to us. Or on the opposite, like not so famous or not so successful or young researchers, they have the talent to present their work. I mean, how do you say the story? The impact will be different, even though that your results are not so important compared to someone that has excellent results, but he fails as a presenter. Remember, you need to convince people to give you money, to give you grants, to give you PhDs, to give you your degree. You need to perform, and you need, to use the appropriate, I will say material, but body language as well. People, they don't appreciate if you present things, if you appear in the presentation the last moment, or if you are delayed. You need to know the venue, not only from the time management restrictions, but you need to know the venue as a basketball player. I mean, I don't know if you have played basketball, but if you play basketball within a court with 20 seats in your gymnasium gym, is much different when you play in, let's say, in 10,000 seat stadium. The size, as you compare the things, are completely different. Even we are talking about the same size of the court, the same size of the basket rim, but the venue and how do we perceive the space is much different. So you need to be in the venue much earlier to be adapted with the environment, to be adapted also with the technology that they are using, to follow the previous lecturers, to identify the people that they are doing the hard questions or what kind of questions they are asked the previous students or the previous colleagues. So you need to know the venue and you need to be on time. Of course, here is the Murphy's Law. I mean, that the things, they don't work as we think. I mean, probably you have less time. You have the computer is not updated with the last PowerPoint software. So in this case, or the microphone does not work, the projector has been damaged or it does not operate well. So you need to have plan B, plan C, plan D. You need to perform. And the simulations during your rehearsal, make you ready in order to anticipate all these technology cleanses. One thing that I suggest to everyone, to you, when you go to a conference or to a presentation, always have two versions of the presentation, PDF and PowerPoint or whatever program you are using. But be able, to face any kind of technical issue. I mean, stress is something that all of us we have. How many presentations you have done, always we are going to feel this constructive stress. Try to avoid, try to fight it. And one way to fight it is the rehearsal. The more trials that you are going to do before the actual performance, the more prepared you are. Sometimes you need to memorize. Sometimes we say that you need to memorize the two first minutes in order to have a flow through your presentation. All right. So this is not bad to do. And always, have your presentation slide as a reminder. Try to adapt the feeling and the atmosphere before you make a presentation. You have your story. You know that your work has addressed a challenge. You know your work better than anyone. So you are confident of your work. You try. The only challenge now is like to convince the audience to adapt your message and make the audience as enthusiasm to transfer your enthusiasm to the audience as you are very enthusiastic about your result. And in this case, you need to be like a radar, like a radar of the aircraft. You can identify, first of all, at the beginning, some positive faces in order to encourage you and boost your motivation and boost your audience to do your presentation. Don't focus yourself in people that they are looking their mobile phones, because this is definitely will not boost your confidence. Try to identify your friends or people that they are smiling and following to you. And for the people that they are looking the audience, through your tone, through your intensity of your voice, try to disrupt them. And instead of looking the mobile phone looking at you, all right? So this is an active and not a passive action. Moreover, I mean, whenever you would like your rhythm, help the people to follow your presentation. So do not hesitate to raise your voice whenever you would like to highlight something. Raise your voice during the conclusions in order to highlight the things and try to regulate this intensity of your noise in order to guide the people through your trip, through your guide. Remember, you're a tour guide, and you guide the audience through your knowledge in your way. So be yourself. I mean, be polite, don't be rude, but be yourself, and your personality will be revealed through your communication. Body language is very important. I mean, in order to reach the respect of the audience to you, you need to be humble. You need to Dress code, I mean, depends on the event, but I mean, you need to show a respect to them. You need to look at them in order to be able to observe the vibes within the audience. If the vibes are low, this is your performance. This is your duty to make the vibes high. And this is how you can do this through your voice, through your enthusiasm, and through your approach. And this is exactly what did I say. And try to keep some time for Q&A because this is the most appropriate, in my opinion, part of a presentation. All right. Over there, you debate with the resistance, you convince people, and you conclude. The conclusion is not only the conclusion of your presentation, but also the questions and answers. Regarding now the impact, try, of course, to follow your ideas through the social media, spread your ideas with social media and people they can follow you, or you can introduce yourself before your presentation through your LinkedIn, through your Facebook, in order the people to learn about you from the moment that they will receive, for example, the program of a presentation. Try to be connected with the people in order to cite your work. And also, this is part of the follow-up. This is just the introduction that I would like to say. I have 25 more minutes, so I will repeat or I will highlight this presentation. As I mentioned before, a presentation is something that disseminates your work. In ancient Greece, I'm a Greek, so I'm going to follow some well-known say by Plato, the art of winning the soul by discourse. This is something that is very important. And remember, whenever you are on the stage, it's the only process that you can have that one human being can convince 200, 2,000, 2 million people below them. So if you are well prepared, if you have a story to say, problem, solution, conclusion, future work, then you can convince one person and simulate. We were talking about coherence, quantum coherence, quantum coherence, within the audience. This is, we can paralyze, that a presentation is like a quantum computer. You have different stages, different individuals with different beliefs, and the factor before, these individuals, it's your mission to tune it in order to convince them. So do not miss this opportunity and try to do it and try to grab the opportunity as whenever comes to you. Another message, on this transparency that I forgot to mention, your story, it's your story, it's your work, but you are not making presentation for yourself. You are doing presentation for yourself, but for the others. You need to convince the others that your work has a value and your point has a value. So however you present your work, you are doing a presentation for the others, and you need to convince the others that you have a value. I think that, I have mentioned this already. So I would like to keep, number 4, because, I mean, the human beings were like machine learning. Like I'm trying to adapt now to the course as much as I can. So we are learning from the others. We are learning from our experiences. So number 1, the more that you engage, the more presentations that you are become, always you are going to become better. It's, you cannot become worse. This is not me. It's the AI, but so and another pathway in order to learn how to make presentation is like, for example, for me, TED Talks. TED Talks is like the definition of a good presentation. They don't have, slides, or they have a slides in order, to keep a rhythm, but they say a story. So following TED Talks, is the best example in order to do. In our cases, in my university, and myself, with my research group, I have the journal club action. So I make the students, to make presentations of, by reading a paper, a research paper every 2 weeks with my colleague, George Kakavelakis. We place the students to present a new development in the research that we are doing. In this way, the students, they learn to make presentations. We made comments to them, not of their research, conclusions, but the way that they present the things, just to correct them and correct ourselves. And also every Friday, the last 4 years, we have the Athena Talks that we call distinguished scientists to present their work. By looking at them, by the way that they present, by the confidence that they present their work, by following this constructive story, beginning, problem, my work, the solution, and future work that shows the potential of my work, I think that we are building their presentation skills. So about the organization and the good presentation, I think that we have mentioned. So keep this message. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. And these are the presentations. Type of presentations depend on the, I'm keeping my time, I have 20 minutes. You have 3 types of presentations. Elevator pitch, that probably when you are going to work in a company, you have very few moments to convince someone of your story. And if you have only 2 minutes, that's why it's calling elevator pitch, from the first ground floor to the 51st floor in the skyscrapers in the US, you need to have the problem, your solution, how your solution is competitive to the other competitors, and what is the future of your solution in order someone to invest. So you see the same story. Keep it simple, and you are going to convince them. And of course, you know, what we are presenting here can be applied from the elevator pitch, from presentation, let's say that you are going to have in a conference, 10 minutes plus 5 or 15 minutes plus 5, the same construction, problem, solution, why this solution is the optimum one, and what is the future of the solution, and how this solution contributes to the development of the story. Yes, Elena?
I would like just to give another example and support your arguments, Kostas, and just bring a personal example story thing into this presentation, wonderful presentation. So I returned from Hania on Saturday, and Sunday morning, 8 a.m., I had a class with my students, and they were presenting. And the first topic of the presentation was global warming, right? So imagine me coming back from Greece, going straight to work and having to listen to this topic of global warming. Do you think I enjoyed that? I have to say, oh my God, yes, I had the best morning, coming back to the reality, because my students actually delivered a wonderful presentation. It was really fascinating. And I want to say 3 things why it was very, very successful. Just like Kostas talking about the importance of giving a story and interesting opening, and they started with a puzzle. They started with connecting with the audience. They actually presented a very interesting riddle where students needed to participate in order to guess the topic of their presentation. Then they moved on to sharing some personal stories. Each presenter just talked about himself, and it was fascinating just to get to know them better. Just in 30 seconds, 1 minute is enough. And then they delivered those slides, but in such a fun and professional way. Like they spoke to the audience, the slides were minimalistic. We were all fascinated and just followed this concept. We learned what and how and what's the problem and how it all works and different solutions, and looked into different examples. It was really, really inspiring. And I was so proud that there isn't a fun way to talk about really difficult concepts. And also you guys showed it to us today, because you talked about extremely difficult and technical and engineering concepts, but in a very interesting and storytelling, fascinating way. So thank you, Costa. Sorry, I just wanted to bring this example.
No. This is part of the course. And I will say that the students, you were in pitch presentation. And definitely, as Elena mentioned, I think that you manage it very well. So here is like, the elevator pitch and how it's developed, but I will move to the main presentation that we would like to have. So a full presentation should have an outline. I mean, whenever you are making a presentation, you need to have, it's like to build a house. And the outline, again, I will repeat myself, is defined by the problem, your approach to solve the problem, why this approach is the optimum one based on your expertise, based on your capacity, based on the tools that you have, and how this solution will contribute for the topic and the field to go on. Because if you offer something that solves a problem forever and there is no new challenges based to this approach, then the sustainability of your results and the citations that you are going to receive and the references and the impact is going to lower. And unless you are going to have a Nobel Prize, but even a Nobel Prize opens a new topic and more challenges are coming, so your work has an importance. So I mentioned about the motivation, the challenge, the importance, the proposed solutions, the future development and the challenges, and the conclusions. that your presentation should contain. So ingredients of a good presentation is the content, what you will say, but you remember the video, how you will say the story also is important. So how you will say the story is very important, the design of your slides that we are going to make. The essence of a good presentation, again, is the objective, is the audience, is the outline of your talk and your story. So I will move with this. And before you start to prepare a presentation, I mean, you need to categorize the objectives based to the audience. Remember, probably you have a mixed audience, and also this will define how you will approach it. So I will move on because some of the things that we have already mentioned at the beginning, because of the time, these are the questions that you need to ask about your audience. What do they know? From which level do they come? Are they going to be the university management? Are going to be your student mates? Are going to be your professors? You need to know, the audience and how many of them they will be present during your presentations in order to identify the wording and how you will say the story and what kind of data you will need to use. At the same when you are a presenter, I think that you play all these roles at the same time. So it's an easy and excitement experience, but you need to work on this and you need to expose and you need to do a mistake. So when you're a presenter, you need to show why people they should listen to you. So you need to be an expert. So from the very beginning, you need to explain to your audience that you have the expertise of the topic that you are talking about. At the same time, you need to be a manager. You need to manage your time. You need to manage your feelings. You need to manage the feelings of the audience. Remember that you are doing a presentation for the others. You need to look at them. You need to interact with their feelings. You need to regulate your tone. You need to regulate your body language. Even we are talking now online, you need to be a facilitator in order to convince them. Remember, some of the people in the audience probably they will not be convinced. You need to convince them. So you need to be a facilitator of, through your knowledge of the audience. You need to be a leader in order to support your findings with the appropriate means, your experiments, the backup of the theory, and etc. We need to be collaborative with the audience in order to address their needs. And of course, you need to be ethical. Whatever you're using is your work that has been confirmed in the laboratory or through the simulation or through your work. Credibility is very, very important. Of course, this has to do with the introduction. And another, element is like the preparation and delivery. So before the presentation and during the presentation. Before the presentation, you need to try, and try. So as many trials and rehearsals you are going to do, the better. You can make the rehearsal in front of the mirror with yourself during your dreams, in front of your girlfriend and your boyfriend, before in front of your friends, your teammates, before you go and perform. Because you need to perform. You need to feel tired after your presentation. And then you need to deliver following the appropriate body language and also the regulation. I mean, you don't need, to make the audience sleepy and etc. So let me move on. Come on, my computer. Come on. All right. So you need to have a coherent story. Remember, a story, a problem, a solution, a future work. This is your story, and you need to tell it, and should be relevant to the audience. How to build the structure? I mean, how to build the structure. So you need to build the outline. Again, you need to have very clear what are you addressing? Why are you doing this presentation? This is the first thing that you should ask yourself. Why I'm doing this presentation? All right? So these are your objectives. And your story and your work addresses the objective. So try to build like a Lego your presentation. Again, I will repeat, what is the motivation? What do you offer? And how do you think that this work can continue? You are a tour guide. So you have three things to design: the opening, the body, the middle part of your presentation, and the closing. And I will use Mario again because I like his closing. Today, like try to have your emotions as well, depending, of course, of the situation. You are not going to start to kiss the people, no, even if you are going to finish. But try to use a nice motto. Another example is like for an opening or for a closing is the motto of Steve Jobs: "Stay foolish, stay hungry." So try to identify some mottos of people that they have impact and they are leaders and they are influencers, whenever they are doing things. Here is like the chapters, how I'm starting, the different chapters, the problem, the solution, the conclusion, and then you build in your paper, your ideas, and then you organize the ideas in order to move on, and finalize it. So I'm moving on with the things that I have not mentioned. Um, Try to say less, to show less and speak more during a presentation regarding the PowerPoint presentation or whatever you are using. Either is a gamma or is not a gamma. Try to use the appropriate themes, the templates. If you are not using the master slide, try to use the templates that they following the rules. If you know the master slide in PowerPoint is very helpful. Try to keep, the alignment. Try to keep the same font. I mean, another issue about presentation, especially in a conference room, people, they try to write a lot of things. This is, against the rules of a presentation, but and also make very small fonts. In order to be able your presentation to be readable, go 2 meters, from your screen and try to read your presentation. If you can manage this, this is something that you have used the right size of the font. However, as a rule of thumb, never use a font size less than 18. Usually you are using 20 or 24, depending if it's a title or is in the main text. Always have a PDF with you in the case of a technical issue. A lot of times during the preparation of a presentation, I mean, you have your ideas and you place ideas, and when you make the rehearsals, you need to reorder the slides. This is something that PowerPoint provides. You can see all the slides together and rearrange them based on the trials that you are going to do. Regarding now the animations, try to use animations not the way that I'm using, because now we have like a lecture, but during a presentation, try to use the animations when you are moving from chapter to chapter. So whenever you are moving from, when you move from motivation and the problem to your solution, try to use animations. So to remind to the audience, even they have lost you, that you are changing direction now of your presentation. So I'm moving on to the presentation. Another thing is like, another question is like, if you, before a presentation, if you to distribute your slides, don't do this, because people, they look at your slide, but at the end, probably you can have some printouts for them, to distribute. I said like not more than 5 bullets in your presentation, not more than 5, because otherwise it's like overloaded.
Rodrigo is working on a present.
All right, this is a video that I will move on. And now about the colors. As I mentioned before, how many colors you are going to use depending on the event. I'm not going to use more than 2 colors in order to keep the thing, more coherent and do not distract the people. And also the colors that you are going to use depends on the site. Regarding the fonts that I'm going to use, depends on what I would like to say. Bold in order to highlight, italic in order to show that this is a work of someone, of other people, and always use one font size, like Times Roman, Calibri. It's up to you, but don't change, this font style a lot. Regarding readability, I mentioned to you, this has to do with the font size. Go 2 meters away from your presentation. If you can read your computer, it's okay, but never use less font size than 18 in any case. So I move on about this. The text, I mean, the presentation is not a book. A lot of times we have seen people like they have a whole book in their presentation. Remember, only short sentences, maximum 5 of them, maximum. The rest of the things you are going to say them through your body language, through your voice, through your interaction with the audience. You need to convince people, and people, they are not convinced if they read the book because you cancel why you should be there. Images. Wow. This is the first conflict that I have with my supervisor when I was doing my PhD. You know, I have excellent result. I have good result in my as an experimental physicist. But you know, my images, you know, at the very beginning, horrible. No units or you know, not clear one. The Chinese, they used to say one image, 1,000 words. Keep this. The people, even when you write a paper, they are going to be captured by your abstract, and after your abstract, they are going to check your figure. If your figures say the story, is the same as you know a presentation. Your images should say the story. So this is something that we need to invest a lot through your images and through your graphs. So pay a very big attention. About numbers, depends on what you would like to say. Numbers, absolute numbers, percentages, imaginary numbers. This depends on your story and what you would like to say. So numbers is not just numbers. Numbers say a story, and the numbers should be suitable to matches your story. The structure, we have already mentioned about this. In my opinion, problem, solution, future work. This is how you should structure your presentation. How to deliver your presentation? I mentioned already. Get well prepared. 10 times, 15 times, independent of your experience. Always you need to get prepared. Always you need to manage your stress. Present yourself, your work for the others. The motivation is very, very important. Know the audience is very, very important. So you need to have, how can I say, an emotional connection with your audience. Don't try to be perfect regarding your slide. Of course, by preparing, you are going to become closer to perfect. But the most important thing is like to convince the other. So how to say the story, even with not perfect slides. This is the most important. So another topic, another thing that I would like to mention, sometimes, I mean, not in the conferences, you cannot ask questions to your conferences in order the people to work. But a lot of times during this course or, the courses, other impact courses, we place you to work. But this is a different type of presentation. This is like a lecture, like a lecture that we need to do. In the conference, however, during the Q&A session, you can engineer the Q&A session. You can leave something open that you know that the people, if they follow you, they will ask. And this gives you more confidence during the Q&A session. So you trap the audience to ask a question that you already know. And also during a presentation, either is your thesis or is your conference, you need to prepare questions. So whenever you remember, we are doing the presentation for the other. So if you place yourself on the audience, you know what they are going to ask. So 2 tips on this. Never present something that you don't know. Second, engineer the questions. Leave some open spaces to force the audience to ask questions that you know. And also prepare a list of the questions that they have high probability to be asked. All right, this we mentioned what we should avoid: jargon, overloaded presentation. Do not keep our time, and because I would like to keep my time, I have 2 more minutes. Like rehearse so early, know your presentation well, and whenever you are in the audience, try to warm up your voice. Also, having a water next to you helps you to manage your, let's say, your stress. Provides a time to the audience and yourself to recapture your ideas. This is not test the technology. Body language is very, very important. I mean, you need to show respect. And here, is a figure of people that they don't know show respect. And this is a body language that you should not have. In my let's say career, I have seen all of these pictures. All right, I have seen all these pictures, even now. So try to avoid this. Be yourself. Be active. Remember, you need to convince people of your work. You are doing presentation for the others of your work, but you need to convince them. In this case, you don't convince them in the first two stages because you are showing to the people that you don't know your work. In the third one, you think that you are very important, and the people, they don't like this. You need to be humble and convince at the same time. Yes, Elena, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just want to add one important point because we want to connect it to AI. In the age of AI, it's very, very important to also project your credibility of your research, of your sources, and each and every slide that has some kind of factual knowledge or data, it needs to have inside citations. So this is not something we deep dive into, but one of the reasons I was also happy about the student presentation is that each and every slide they presented, it had a tiny reference to a paper that they read, to an article, to a book, to a YouTube video that they watched. Like everything had kind of a background. And at the end, this is something we did discuss. You already know that you have to disclose the use of your AI tools. It's important to be transparent and honest in an academic setting. And AI, no, everyone knows that everyone is using AI, but there is a difference between how you do it, right? So when you do it in an ethical and responsible way, and you actually describe how you do it and show your references, show your bibliography, then it's much more scientific and academic, and we trust you. So that's what I wanted to add.
Thank you. So you need to memorize the first 20 seconds in order to convince. You need to respect the time of the Q&A sessions. A lot of times you can see the moderator is stand up in order to inform you that your time has finished, but the people going on because of their enthusiasm, not because they don't want Q&A session. But you need to leave the time as an action of respect, but also you need to be challenged. I mean, you need to be your knowledge to be challenged. So a Q&A session is something that you need to looking forward in order to challenge your work. Regarding the remote presentation, I mean, you need to have some spaces. You need to provide some questions very often. You need to move your language, and your body language also can be transferred through the camera and whenever you have your cameras on. So that's why you need to have the cameras, because also the speaker follows the audience through the cameras in this case. Good lighting, good audio, and good network. Come on, Costas. So I will move on to this thing. Storytelling is something that we have mentioned. And the storytelling, about the storytelling, let me also, because we mentioned at the beginning, use your senses, feelings. That's why the storytelling, let's say, has your personal experiences. The people, they say, wow, this is something that someone experienced. Use your emotions in a controlled way and use facts. Remember, numbers as well. Facts. People remember stories and numbers if you would like to convince them. So I move on. Steve Jobs, is a great influencer. He has always a storytelling to say. That's why he convinced the people. So I'm going to move on to this. Body language is not only your body, how you would like to be, but it's like your timing, your tone, and your energy. I have described this. Because you make the presentation for the others, especially for technical aspects, you need to speak slow, not like I'm speaking now myself, or in general, how do I speak? Because you transmit an information and you need to give time to the people. It's like an electronic system. You provide, you detect, you process, you understand. All right. So this is something that you need to respect as well regarding how fast do you speak. So I will move on about the stress. As I told you, do not feel bad if you have a stress. Everyone has a stress, independent of the experience. Try to practice, try to have a glass of water next to you. And this is like the only thing, the only recipe in order to face your stress. And here you can see the nerves and how the audience it is. So at the beginning, you have an anxiety, it stop at the very beginning. So if you try to memorize and if you try to practice, even at the beginning, this is something that will help you to lower this stress curve. So These are the things that we have already mentioned. I will keep the eye contact. The only thing that I would like to say is the eye contact in order to observe the audience and try through your tone and through your voice and through the highlighting to manage your message. And how do I manage the unexpected? Be prepared, be ready over there, have plan A, plan B, plan C for everything that will happen. You need to perform, even if the computer does not work, even if you don't have a slides, you need to perform. So try to be there and try to simulate these situations. And I think, come on, I don't have, anything else to say. I will say a few things about the Q&A session, especially for the young scientists or, for the mature scientists. Whatever question you are going to listen, you need to accept it very politely. Don't make comment. This is naive question. I have done this. This is bad. Don't say like, this is a stupid question, or you should know this thing. Try to accept it. Thank for the question. Even if you know the answer, let the people to finish the question, because you save some time and you are going to respond. And from the moment that you are going to respond questions, your credibility will be enhanced. So try to be there. Sometimes people, they say like that after the Q&A session, you need to make the conclusion because the good day is finalized at the end. So the other things, I think that, this is something that I have already mentioned about the questions and try to prepare the questions and the conclusion. In order to close this, with 5 minutes delay, I have not respected the time that they have. You need to be a tour guide. You need to have, the people to have a nice time with. It's not only the information that you're going to provide, but they should have a nice time. Definitely, they should not be boring. You need to know the topic that you're going to present. Never present something that you don't know, because if you're going to do it, you are going to, I'm sorry about my language, you're going to fuck it up, in the Q&A session. If you don't know an answer in the Q&A session, admit it, but not in a very direct way, in order to protect your credibility. Say that I'm not sure about my question. Let me, think, and you can discuss it on the break. But never say something that you are not sure, because this will bring more questions and you are going to lose your credibility. Practice your body language and your presentation, and you perform, nice skills, with presentation, experience, and also conclusion. I will move
You
on
have learned
with
different
this.
techniques.
All right, this is so this is like some useful links regarding the presentation and links, how to find slides. And with this, I would like to thank you for your attention. And I would like to thank, again for the course and the project, for the opportunity that gave to us to interact and be together and learn from each other. Because interactive classroom is the classroom that we don't have teachers and students. We have students and teachers at the same time, and both of us we play the same role. So thank you for your time, and Elena, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Kostas. Thank you for your amazing slide deck. I'll be happy to upload it for students to access later, maybe explore the additional links and videos and all the rich content that you created. So thank you very, very much. I think it was a very nice and logical wrap up for the conference presentation skills. And we are moving on in the next couple of sessions into AI, back to using AI agents, creating some bots. So next week we will be working with creating bots for different use cases of your choice, but I will show you platforms where you could create bots, and we will have a great guest speaker next week, Professor Sarah Gibson, and the next following week we'll have another guest speaker. So thank you very much, and sorry for a little delay in timing, and I'll see you next week. Thank you very much and goodbye. Thank you, Kostas. Thank you very much.
Good night, guys. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Goodbye.